ever feel like your surroundings are limiting your creativity? If you lived in a bigger city like London or New York or Tokyo, that you'd be able to create the most amazing things all the time because you could just step outside your apartment and boom, you're in the big city. Yeah, I feel that way too. But in this video, I'm gonna go through several ways that even if you're from a smaller city or a really small town, that you can still create really cool things and just make the most of where you live. I currently live in Manchester. I've been here for around 5 years and, you know, it's a decent city. There's a lot to like about it. There's good food, there's some interesting architecture, and there's new developments being done every year. So, you know, it gets a bit more pretty and interesting to film as the years go by. But having been here for 5 years, I'm a little bit bored of it, if I'm honest. And even the things that are new, because they're so far and few between, I film them and use them for content pretty quickly. And having used a lot of the other hotspots around town as well already, I'm kind of reusing the same spots over and over and over for content creation. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong with that or there's nothing to do here, but I'm just providing some context about my situation so you guys have some understanding about where I'm coming from for the points I'm going to make in this video. So even if you're in a small city like I am, there's still lots of ways you can be a budding content creator. My first way is working with what you've got. There will be some hotspots with whichever town, city, or whatever that you're in. For me, there's quite a few to hit up, and whilst I've, been there, done that, they are at least somewhat prettier than just an average street, and so they make it worth it to go and check out. And if anything, I can always check them out at different times of day, maybe bring a different focal length of lens. That way, it makes it a little bit different every time I go. On the other side of working with what you've got, I've shot a lot in this apartment. And if you think about it, apartments are like 4 walls. Okay, there's more than 4, but you get what I mean. It's a small area to work with, and it's also where I live, so there's a fair few things in here and my dogs and stuff to work around. But I've shot a lot of things in here that I'm pretty happy with, and some very interesting and creative shots. Because I'm stuck in here, I have to think about everything else to make the shot look interesting, rather than just thinking, oh, I wish my apartment looked more interesting, because, well, that's up to me really, isn't it? As in, not with the decorating, I mean with like the lighting and the shot design, and I guess to a degree the decorating actually. For instance, with my Lumix G7 video, I think I did a pretty great job making the apartment look more interesting than it actually is, and that was through the shot variety I was getting as well as the lighting. But outside your own 4 walls, you could also look at nearby areas. There's a place called Snake's Pass, which is a 40-minute drive from Manchester, and I have gone there so many times. I've gone there with friends, gone there on my own. It's great for shooting because it's just some interesting, like, big winding road going through some hills, and it's great because it has different textures, has different colors, and it's obviously a huge contrast to a city. Now, obviously, yeah, it's a bit of a drive, and maybe if you don't have a car, this is a bit of a limiting factor, but if you can look at what's nearby, maybe a neighboring town, or just a forest nearby, something that's different to what you're always shooting at, that can be a great way to get out of your normal place and shoot somewhere a bit more interesting. Alright, method number 2 for dealing with a small city is networking. Now, even though this won't physically change anything about your space, having another person's point of view on a hotspot that you shoot in a lot, or maybe somewhere you've never thought to shoot in because you didn't think much of it, but they do all the time, can be a huge game changer for how you shoot. Something as simple as just searching for fellow filmmakers or photographers in your area on Instagram and just DMing them saying, hey, do you want to grab coffee? Like, I do this, I see you do that, would you want to shoot sometime just for fun? I've actually made friends this way before, and it's a great way to connect with people and just expand not only your network, but also your views on how you shoot things. Plus, going around town with friends and just shooting, it's honestly a lot more inspiring than doing it on your own. And then beyond that, there's even groups that you can join on Facebook and Instagram where they'll do photo walks, and you can go with a big group of people and just kind of chat, get to know people. There's actually one in the UK called UK Shooters, and they do meetups on Instagram and Facebook like every year or something, a few times a year or something. I've been wanting to go to one, but the one time they went to Manchester, I was not in the country, so that was unfortunate. They also look like a lot of fun, so it looks like a great place to shoot and hang out with people. Okay, method number 3 for dealing with a small city or town is focus on the storytelling instead of the aesthetics. I mentioned earlier about my G7 video about how I focused on the lighting and the shots rather than how good my apartment looked, or maybe I should get a different location or whatever. I was using a limited camera. It's actually a good camera, it just doesn't have log or whatever. And it didn't have all the bells and whistles of what my S5 Mark II can do, for instance. But I was also using my apartment, which is just an apartment. I was using my bed, my bathroom, my shower, my kitchen, my balcony. Nothing crazy, but I made it look a lot better than it actually does in real life by just focusing on the story and the lighting as well. And you can do this for anywhere. If you look at ways of capturing environments that you shoot in all the time in a more interesting way, even go as far to add lighting to those situations just by, bringing a light stand and bringing a light with you and setting up lights. And sure, maybe it's a bit of a faff and maybe people will look at you and wonder what you're doing, but you will ultimately change the shots that you capture in those situations and you'll create something new that you're happy with. Now, the next half of this point is something that my friend George does quite a bit.
Whenever I leave the house with my camera, I try and set myself a little goal, like a mini photography assignment. Sometimes that might look like photographing X number of dogs, or it might be trying to work with color contrast, or it could be trying to fill the frame with a group of people. For me, doing this puts an end to the endlessness of photography, so each time I return from a photo walk, I've achieved something and I have something to show for it.
Every time he goes out for a shoot, he now goes with intention. He has a challenge set before every single walk, rather than just going out and capturing whatever. Having no direction, it means you don't really capture, well, anything good. But if you go out with intention, like George setting a challenge for himself every time, he focuses a lot more on what he's capturing and ends up capturing some great photos. If you do the same thing with your shots, then you'll have the same results. Okay, now there is a final method for dealing with being in a small town or city, and it's actually leaving it. There will come a time in your life where maybe you feel you've outgrown where you currently live. I've been in Manchester for 5 years now, and it's a great city, but there's some things to be desired that Manchester can't provide. For one, it's the weather. Like, I know people in the UK joke about how much it rains here, but Manchester is a next level rainy city. It's not even #1 in the UK. I think it's number 7 or number 9 for like the most rainiest city in the UK. But guys, that's really bad. When it's raining here, it's sunny in London, just to put things into perspective. And it's cities like London that often draw my attention just because they offer a lot more that Manchester just doesn't. At least not yet. Now, obviously, moving cities can be very expensive, and maybe you're moving to a more expensive city, so there's that to consider as well. And obviously, I know that you can't just up and go without having security like a job and finances behind you to help with moving and getting an apartment and deposits and things like that. You have to be realistic and not put yourself in a dire situation. But if it is something that you want to do, ultimately, it is something that you can work towards. And maybe it's the right move if you've exhausted all other options. There's also nothing wrong with moving. Like, I don't think you have to exhaust every option in the world ever to then finally move somewhere. If you want to move somewhere, just move somewhere. But these are methods I feel are best for tackling a small city content creator lifestyle where you just want to shoot more things and not get bored with where you're shooting. But hey, there's nothing wrong with trying anything new. At the end of the day, I think so long as you make the most of where you live and you just keep trying new things, go out with intention, and challenge yourself from time to time to shoot new things, I think you'll be fine with wherever you live. And so long as you're happy with where you live and you create content that you enjoy, isn't that all that matters? In the meantime, if you're looking for some camera movement techniques to learn as a beginner filmmaker, check out this video over here and be blown away by the last one, because that one was really, really mind-blowing when I first found out about it.